Welcome to Keeping Secrets, hosted by Julia Baum and Sabrina Tropper.
We're two licensed therapists here to give you an insider's perspective on therapy in today's modern world.
Whether you're a therapy goer, you've never been to therapy, or you have experience in the field, this podcast is for you.
We thank you for listening. Subscribe to Keeping Secrets to never miss an episode, and we hope you enjoyed today's show. Welcome back to Keeping Secrets. Our topic today is self-care as therapists.
All right. Yes. And just to make a note, our intention is to just have like a real conversation around this. It's not to give like a how-to about self-care. It's just kind of exploring like our own experiences as therapists with self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be relatable.
For sure. Yeah, it's really just our own experience. So, all right. Why don't we get started? One of the first things that comes to my mind when I think of self-care as therapists is what we were taught in grad school. So when I think about what was taught in grad school for me, I remember it being mentioned. It was, we talked about countertransference and transference and how it impacts therapy, and also what do you do when you're struggling. So we did discuss that. But my first job out of grad school, I think kind of changed that for me. What about you, Julia? Do you remember how it was discussed for you in grad school?
Yeah, I remember self-care being incorporated into the ethics course, the ethics of counseling. And again, like you said, as therapists, our well-being impacts how we work with other people. So, when you think of it that way, it's truly not just about taking care of ourselves. It's about taking responsibility for how we impact our clients. And are we showing up exhausted, burnt out, hungover, whatever it may be.
Hopefully not.
It's not just how you feel, it's how that's going to come across. So it is an ethical consideration, and that's how it was, embedded in the coursework. But yeah, of course, that's, a small portion of one class. And then otherwise it was definitely mentioned.
Okay.
But I think as a student, especially at that time, I think myself and all of my friends in the courses were like, this sounds great, but how do you do that when you're, working and going to school and you still need to have a life and all that stuff. So it's really hard to actually implement.
Yeah, I think my experience was probably more similar to what you just described, Julia, because in grad school, for those of you who haven't been through graduate school to become a therapist, you have, a full course load, and then you start doing your internships or externships or your placement, where you're actually seeing clients while you're also still going to school. So it does become a little bit more taxing, especially, when you start seeing people in person and having to do supervision and on top of that. And it gets intense. So yeah, I mean, self-care from the perspective of an ethical sort of issue is really important because it affects the way we show up for our clients. And it's really important to manage that.
Yeah, I think, we have kind of a heavier responsibility than maybe some other professions. I think this applies to doctors and things like that, but maybe, I don't know, if you just work with numbers or, you're not face to face with anyone, you can kind of be I felt like crap today. Oh, well. But
Yeah.
when you feel like crap in front of your clients, it does
Yeah.
make a difference for them.
And they can sense it too sometimes. Like when you're really kind of dragging your feet, or, maybe you're starting to get sick and you're just trying to like push through it.
Yeah.
That, my clients have noticed before when I push myself too hard. And then it's like, I have to kind of reconsider afterwards, should I have called in sick maybe, So that was a learning
Yeah.
curve, especially in the beginning for me, and still kind of is sometimes, but I think I've gotten better with it. What about you,
Yeah.
Julia?
I mean, that's always a really tough call. Like,
Yeah.
which is better or worse, whichever way you look at it. Like, is it better to
Yeah.
show up compromised, or is it better to not show
Yeah.
up at all? And
Yeah.
it's kind of hard. I think it also depends on the client, like,
Yeah.
and that's a hard judgment call when you have like a day's worth of all different people. And it's like, some
Yeah.
people are gonna be like, oh, that's fine, see you next week. And then other people will
Right.
be like, I've been waiting all week for this session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Like you have all different levels of need, even though, both Julia and I specialize and we have generally a pretty predictable level of clients that we work with, but they all still have very different presentations and different needs. So, what looks like me not being present for one person may not look like that for somebody else. So that's where it gets a little gray.
That's also true.
And again, there's like gradations of this. Sometimes when I'm like at the tail end of a cold or something, I'll still kind of come in because as long as I feel like I can be present and focused, then I'll do it. But if I'm not, I've just learned, I think I need to cancel if I'm going to be like really sick.
Yeah. And I think another component to that decision-making process is like, we are human, and part of this
Yeah.
work is showing up
Good point.
authentically. And yeah, I mean, that's something I kind of struggle with too. Like, if I have a headache or something, like, do I want to show up and be
Yeah.
like, oh, I have a headache today, but
Yeah.
I'm okay, or whatever. I don't know. Sometimes I do. If I feel like I can be there, but I know like maybe I might look a little off or something. I
Yeah.
think sometimes they'll be like, I have a bit of a headache, but I'm here, or something, just so they
Yeah.
know if they're like, her eyes look different or something,
Yeah, I think that's a great way of approaching it, is just basically like, yeah, I can show up too. It kind of shows, I think, that you've thought about it. You're like, I'm good enough to show up, and also sometimes it's okay if you're feeling a little under the weather, but you can still be there. A headache depends on the severity though.
Yeah, you have to decide, like, can I still do the work? But it's interesting because our expectations as therapists for our clients is often like, okay, you have a little cold. Like, that doesn't mean we can't meet, or, you have a
Yeah.
headache. It doesn't mean we need to skip the week here. So I look at it that way too. Like,
Yeah.
every session, it can't be like the most profound, wonderful session. Although sometimes it ends up being, even though you're like, I didn't think that was gonna be so much today. But yeah, anyway, well, and that just, I think, is representative of how important just showing up is, because you never know what's gonna transpire.
Yeah, I mean that's I think one of the major things about being a therapist is showing continuity and care. It's a way you show care for your clients, especially those who haven't been shown that a lot in a lot of their previous relationships. Is that, like if I say I'm going to show up at this time and this day, I'm going to, and it's consistent, it's there, and I'll be there in the way that you expect. And if I can't, then I will do my damnedest to let you know,
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't always have to feel wonderful or have
Right.
the be convenient to me, I'm committed to it.
Right. But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come at the expense of your health either. And
Yeah, it's really, like an interesting process of decision making. Like,
yeah.
where do you draw the line?
Yeah, because it's kind of a parallel process for our clients. They have to
Mm-hmm.
decide too if it's worth it for them to cancel if they wake up,
Mm-hmm.
and they're coughing a little bit okay and they know they can get through it, or they're like vomiting or something and they're really just not, it's just not possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, maybe we should
Yes.
probably move on.
Of course, we've digressed.
We
But,
have.
yes.
That's okay.
So, yeah, I think the main problem with inadequate self-care tends to be burnout.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it's also, what's tough about it is that the people who are getting burnt out or are burnt out sometimes don't even realize it. Even if they're
Right.
really self-aware, it's sometimes, if you're used to pushing through,
Mm-hmm.
you essentially are getting used to ignoring your own needs.
Yeah.
So then you're not necessarily going to be able to know, unless you really stop and think about it, if you're burnt out.
Yeah, and I suppose we're, speaking as therapists, we're talking a lot about our profession, but I'm sure this is
Mhm.
true in others as well.
Yeah, I would think
yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wait, were you going to say something?
I was just going to ask you, like, what your experience has been with burnout, if that's something you want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have felt burnt out at times, but
Okay.
thankfully I've resolved it, or it's resolved itself or something.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, burnout for me happens a lot, or a lot. It tends to, I'm susceptible most to it when I'm like giving more than I'm replenishing for
Yeah,
myself.
that's a great metaphor, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, there has to be that balance there. Like, even if you're only seeing a small number of people, if you're not like giving back to yourself in some way, you could even get burnt out from that. And that could
For
just
sure.
show up as like a lack of interest, or, where you don't really want to show up for these sessions, or compassion fatigue, or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something else?
Well, I was going to say, I think one thing that really helps to mitigate that, in addition to kind of like refueling, is keeping yourself interested in the work somehow.
Yeah. I
For
agree.
me, that's been like, diving deeper into learning different modalities and like approaches and philosophies on mental health and well-being, and that just keeps it really interesting for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that. And
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's something other people in other professions can too. It's, in my case, I feel like, professional development and like continuing education, it reminds me of why I got interested in this field in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're starting to learn like new developments or something like that. Or like just, I don't want to say an advanced technique, but like another tool for your toolbox, another option that you just didn't think of or you needed some reminding of. It's just, it's a good moment to like pause and reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a source of replenishing, but
Definitely, yeah. Like
yeah.
I have
Yeah.
more to give now therapeutically, and
Yeah, but even with
yeah.
that, it's a slippery slope sometimes because I feel like if I sign up for too many like continuing education courses all at once, then I'm like, oh no, this is too much. I'm going to be really tired on Fridays.
Everything has got to be in like balance. You can't have too much of a good thing. Like,
yeah,
even like, too much vacation,
yeah,
you could end
yeah.
up being like, ugh, I don't even want to go back now.
Yeah, it's like eating too much chocolate cake at a certain point. The sugar just like
Oh, that's a good way
ruins
to put it.
you.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I think that is true. Yeah, like
I love
too
chocolate.
too much self-care can actually be an unhelpful thing. Yeah. No, I think that's true.
Yeah, I mean I feel like so much of our work anyway as therapists too is like figuring out what the best balance is no matter what you do. Like
Yeah.
it's it's kind of give and take. There's dialecticals, there's always too much of this or that and sometimes it's like three-dimensional and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, are you taking care of yourself and can you show up? And that's, yeah, and we digressing, or I'm digressing again. Okay.
I mean, it's all related though. I mean, it's cool, like just kind of recognizing these things in real time. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, the more the merrier, like if I was just like in Hawaii getting massages for 3 weeks, I might.
That sounds kind of nice.
I guess at a certain point, maybe it takes longer than 3 weeks. I don't know. But like at a certain point, you might be like, I've lost touch with my work and my clients and like, where were we?
Oh, for sure. No, even that would get boring, honestly. It's like, okay, what's next? I want to be like
self-indulgent.
Yeah, you're not stimulated enough, you're just kind of getting bored.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know you and I have like talked privately too, just about experiences with clients, like hearing them share about therapists that, were burnt out and, maybe we could speak to that a little bit.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Julia, but what you're referring to is clients who have come in and sort of told us, both of us have had these experiences. They had like a therapist or a psychiatrist or something that started dozing off in the middle of their session.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, awful. When I was...
Yeah.
I just remember once when I was working at a community mental health clinic and we had like this therapeutic model where we would sometimes accompany our clients in to see the psychiatrist. So we were like home-based therapists. We would do home visits and then we would bring them into the office if they needed to see our psychiatrist, and we would sometimes sit in on the sessions if they were okay with it. And I did that for one of my clients. On one occasion, the person in question, the psychiatrist that they were meeting with, started dozing off in the middle of my client's like description of what she was dealing with, and it was jarring to say that. Like I remember just kind of like literally I was like poking them to be like, hey, don't, you're dozing off, like,
wow.
stop. It was really bad. That, I mean, that didn't happen that's a pretty egregious thing.
You actually witnessed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not good.
Did you talk to the client about it afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I remember this was a long time ago. This was I was still doing my supervised hours basically, so it was a while ago. But this person in particular was not as tuned in.
The client,
yeah, for better or for worse.
Okay.
But they definitely noticed. And I did speak to them afterwards, and and they noticed during too, like when I was just kind of poking
Mm-hmm.
the psychiatrist, you know, and I just kind of had to say, you know, I'm so sorry that that happened. Kind of apologizing on their behalf, and you know, sat with them and listened and asked her like how that felt. Did not
Mm-hmm.
feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And the client did lose some trust after that, understandably. And so I think I even like made a request to switch clinicians for them after that. It was a while ago, but it was not. Yeah, it was not
Okay.
pleasant.
Like they lost trust in the psychiatrist.
Yeah. And, you know,
Okay.
they were already kind of difficult to, not, I don't want to say difficult, but that, you know, they weren't super trusting anyway.
Right. Yeah,
So this
that's
was not this is not a good thing.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this just makes me think like so much of this is systemic. Like, you
Yeah.
know, this client was working with a community mental health clinic.
Mhm.
I'm just assuming they have a history with that sort of care, and maybe they've, you know, experienced that in other ways that have
Yeah.
contributed to a lack of trust, and maybe even like, you know, a sort of
Yeah.
disconnect or, you know,
All of the above, I think.
hold back because, you know, that would be a natural response after you've experienced something like that. But yeah, it is systemic because then, like, you know, people working in these community mental health clinics, I don't know if people realize, are almost always overworked
Yeah.
and underpaid for the work they're doing. And, you know,
Yeah.
working extremely long, difficult, demanding, high
Very.
stress hours with very little support.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, that's because of a bigger problem where our society doesn't really value mental health, and certainly less so with underprivileged people. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
funded properly so that therapists or other, you know, caregivers can afford to work reasonable hours and
Right.
take care of themselves, you know,
Right. And
not
they're
coming.
always, yeah.
Oh,
Sorry,
what?
they're always like dropping out or quitting, I want to
Yeah,
say.
there's huge turnover rate, which is also not good for clients, and
Nope.
trust building. I mean, yeah, there's
Yeah.
been so many stories I've heard from clients over the years of just like a therapist disappearing from the clinic, just like, oh, they're gone. Oh, can't tell you what happened, can't tell you where they went. You know,
Yeah.
this person that you trusted and you were expecting to see
Yeah.
for, you know, ongoing therapy is gone.
Yeah, and that's like particularly damaging to that population that in a sense is neglected on a systemic level in all the other ways too, if they're in underserved, if they're
Mm-hmm.
living in an underserved community.
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah.
reinforces everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another layer to it too, which is that I don't know if we've talked about this, but that typically in the most underserved areas, especially in New York and I think the rest of the country too, they'll hire the least experienced clinicians because
Mm-hmm.
we're the ones that are, in a sense, a little more desperate to get work because we have to work towards our hours.
Mm-hmm.
They know that.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, because it's such a high burnout rate, by the time you get licensed, most people are just like, I'm out of here. Like, I can't work in that environment. It's not the
Right.
people, it's not the
No.
clients even.
Yeah.
It's
That is
yeah.
exactly what my experience was. Like, I loved working with that population.
Me
And
too.
I just felt crappy about how crappy I
Yeah.
felt and how crappy my life
Yeah.
was. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, the hours and the pay just like do
Yeah.
not work in a sustainable way, you know.
No.
And like really, I mean, the biggest thing for me is I really love doing therapy
It's
and
awesome.
it doesn't feel good when you're like underperforming from like what your own potential is. It's something you care
Yeah.
about. And for me, I really just wanted to set up a situation for myself where I could work to my full potential, like be my
Yeah.
best version of a therapist. I mean, I could do that here and there, but it wasn't something I could do like all day, every day.
No, and we were forced really to do that because that was those were the terms of the job, at least
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective. I think all of
Right.
the community mental
Yeah.
health, like,
But yeah, and I think
yeah,
anytime this sort of conversation comes up, I always like to shed light on the circumstances that, like,
yeah,
why did that psychiatrist fall asleep? Maybe that was the 12th person they saw in the past 6 hours and they
yeah,
hadn't had lunch. And, you know, they
hmm,
came home at 10 p.m. the night before and didn't
yeah,
have time for dinner. And, you know, it's just like this
and
whole
on and on and on. Yeah,
cascade. And it's like, you're human, and as good of a job as you want to do, like eventually your own needs take over. And yeah, when your body needs sleep
yeah,
that badly,
yeah.
that's really saying something.
No, when your body is forcing you to sleep like that, then it's not a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also at the same time, it also means that you can't really do your job effectively anymore. And in fact, you're probably
Mm-hmm.
causing harm at that point.
Right. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is just like,
Yeah.
of course, at the end, it's like bringing up so much stuff. But yeah, and that's just like, yeah, another kind of systemic dilemma, because
Yeah.
then I guess, you know, the ethical thing is to leave, but also you still need a job. And I don't know, it's just like, it's really
Oh,
hard.
and around and around it
Yes.
goes. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and this is years ago now, but I believe that individual did get pushed out.
Okay.
Um, I don't remember exactly what it was. A bigger organization. They didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
be super transparent, but they
Mm-hmm.
were no longer there in a couple months, basically.
Yeah.
You know, but it was a little bit more of a severe issue in that case. But that's not the first time I've heard that happening. It's the only time I've
Mm-hmm.
witnessed it. It's not the first time I've had clients come in and actually say to me, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like my therapist was kind of stifling a yawn, which is okay, that happens. But I've also heard like their eyes kept closing, like, oh, that person is then actually kind of dozing at that
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
And it took them like years to come back to therapy after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So,
So, but for anyone that's ever happened to, it's almost definitely not personal. It's almost
yes,
definitely not because you're boring. And also, you don't
it
have to
isn't.
be interesting to your therapist.
Yeah.
If they're a good therapist, they will be interested.
Yes,
Or if they're
exactly.
too burnt out to even like connect with you, that's a different issue. But
So,
anyway,
yeah. No, that's a great point.
yeah. And I think more subtle ways that burnout shows up is just the therapist being less involved in the
Mm-hmm.
conversation, um, just, you know, nodding along and agreeing with things, not
Yeah.
bringing up anything particularly challenging or, you know, introspective or
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Like not pushing a client, to really look at what they're saying or doing, right? Like
Right.
just kind of I think you had said this a while ago. The idea is like if they're not they're just kind of yesing,
Yeah.
that it's just constant like everything is right. Everything you're doing is great. No, you're fine. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like overly supportive in a way
Yeah.
that's not actually
Just
supportive.
like jumping on the bandwagon, like, oh, I can't believe they said that to you. And like,
Right.
oh, your boss sucks and stuff like
Right.
that.
Without, stopping and saying, wow, what was going on there that,
Right.
might have happened. Maybe there's more to this story. Like,
Yeah. I think another thing is, it can be very easy as a therapist to like latch on to just kind of like chit chat or gossip or just
small talk. Yeah.
Because a lot of clients will get into a lot of like interpersonal, like, and then I said this, and then he said that, and then I said this, and and like, I think you have to be really with it as a therapist to know like how much of that is relevant and when do you jump in, and when you're burnt out, it's like it's just entertainment, and you can just kind of be like, they said that? What?
Yeah. Yeah, that's more of a gray area, grayish, I want to say. But it's also really important. I think that now that I'm in private practice, I don't know how you feel, Julia, but I feel like that's the line that if I start noticing I'm doing a little bit of that, then I'm like, oh, maybe I need vacation, or maybe I need a couple days or more sleep or something.
This is
like,
too much like getting coffee with a friend, and it should not be that way.
No, your therapist is not your friend, even though it may feel that way at times. It's different.
These are all like examples that I think I've had in my career, but you have to keep kind of checking in with yourself and where you're at, and schedule vacations when you need it and all that stuff. I never placed such an importance on sleep until I was a therapist. Like anything else I did in my life, I was just like, well, I'm really tired today, and like, oh well. And with this, it's like I cannot function this way.
Yeah, I can relate to that, but I do feel a little differently. I think in that I've not been a great sleeper for a lot of my life in general. But so I've had, just to notice that. But you're right though, it's with this job in particular, it's that you have to be present, you have to be on, literally. You're listening for 45 minutes to an hour per person. 4 to 5 to 7 for some people, sessions per day. And if you're not properly fed, you haven't slept, you haven't done all the basics, then you're not going to get through that,
Absolutely. Yeah, because you have to be present. Like there's so many things that you can do sort of detached, or just going through the motions. Okay, like I did the job, whatever,
Right.
But being a therapist is all about being present.
Yeah.
And everything else comes secondary. Like, like the tools you're using as a therapist and all of that, it comes second. Like if you are checked out, you're not grabbing the right tools.
No, and I do want to mention too that if you've been working like this for a long time, it gets easier. It's not like, what I mean by that is that it's easier to be present in the right ways, and it's easier to recognize patterns because we've seen so many clients now. And that's why experience is so important. So in that regard, it does take less energy, but it's still more than I think a lot of other maybe professions. Like, I mean, the only thing I can kind of like piece out on is when I'm writing notes or something, and because I hate writing notes.
Oh, I'm envious of that. I feel like if I'm like not focused, I just am like, oh, I don't know what to write here. But
I can get like that too, and then I just fall behind. But it's like less energy to write those notes because
I
they're
get
like,
what you mean.
yeah,
You could do that like on the couch and whatever.
yeah, yeah, in my sweatpants.
Well, we're always like running up against the clock. Like
We
our
are.
momentum just gets going, and then we gotta stop.
But we should wrap this up,
Yep.
for sure.
Yes.
Was there anything
yeah.
you wanted to say before we finish, Julia? Any last thoughts?
Well, I guess we just kind of explored our own experiences, like, butting up against burnout,
Mm-hmm.
and also kind of just discussing how we've witnessed it and seen it in our field. And
Yeah.
I think it's a very hard thing to balance, like we were talking about in the beginning. Where do you draw the line between like, I cannot be effective, and
Right.
the difference between like upholding your commitment by showing up, or upholding your commitment by holding back and missing an appointment. It's a delicate act. It's a big responsibility. What about you? What are your final thoughts?
I definitely agree with all of that. It's a balancing act for sure. And I think one of the things that I'd like to get out there is it's kind of ironic a little bit that therapists themselves struggle so much, particularly when we're in training, to balance self-care when we are usually the ones that are preaching self-care to our clients. At least I am, and a lot of other therapists I know. And yeah, I think as a field, it's a place that we could stand to make some improvements. The systemic stuff is harder, but
And I think most of our biggest challenges with that are as therapists are because of systemic issues.
that's a very good point. Yeah. Manage
Um,
healthcare, insurance companies, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
On that note.
Yeah, we should wrap up. But
Okay.
thank you so
All
much for
right.
tuning in, and yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
You were just listening to Keeping Secrets, hosted by Sabrina Tropper and Julia Baum. If you like what you heard, leave us a review or a comment. We'd love to hear your suggestions, comments, questions, and topic requests. We do our best to respond to every single one, and you may even hear yours discussed in an upcoming episode. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts, and find us on Instagram and YouTube at Keeping Secrets Pod. Keeping Secrets is the brainchild of Julia Baum and Sabrina Tropper, who also produced and directed this podcast. We're also responsible for all writing, research, graphic design, sound engineering, and video editing. Transcriptions by Riverside. As a reminder, this podcast does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to share the most accurate and up-to-date information, human error is to be expected, and this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes.